in this part of the video, we're going to look at Agile Manifesto, which are the 4 values that were actually written in 2003, and they are still radical today. We are still using them today. So let us go through the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile Manifesto actually is focused on 4 values of Agile, and we are going to go through them one by one in this specific video. So the first one is the individuals and iterations over processes and tools. So what you are seeing to the right of the screen is what is normally used for predictive. So it's just like a comparison. So instead of having individuals and interactions, processes and tools, they are normally done for predictive. For Agile, we use individuals and also interactions. Then we also have working software over comprehensive documentation. This is quite important. You're focusing more on value than documentation in an Agile environment. So instead of focusing on documenting thoroughly what the software is going to look like, as an example, you are focusing more on something that is working. And you could be thinking that this is only related to software environment. No, it can be used for anything else. Instead of focusing on documentation, focusing on something that is working. Then the third item is also customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So this value is very important also. You want to involve your customers all the way from the beginning up to the end. And you want to get as much feedback as possible from the customer as compared to predictive, where you have to wait all the way up to the end for you to demonstrate something to the customer. So the customer is collaborating. Remember, we have in an agile methodology, we have the sprint review meeting. This is when you invite the customers to confirm and accept either the increments from the sprint or even the completed product from the sprint. So customer collaboration is more important than negotiation. What do you mean by negotiation? In a predictive environment, in most cases, the customers, they bring in requirements. You start to negotiate whether these requirements should be done now or later, or is it a change request that has got some cost implications? You negotiate on the costs and so on and so forth. But in an Agile environment, you're involving the customers from the beginning all the way. And therefore, most likely, because the requirements or the changes, they're accepted until the last minute, you have your customers being involved in terms of their requirements, which one is more valuable than the other, which one is less risky than the other one, and so on and so forth. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation is very important. Then you also have responding to change over following a plan. This is one of the values in the manifesto for Agile. You are focusing more on giving value than following a plan. So how do you do that? If there is a change which the customer thinks is going to give better and more value as compared to what is in the product backlog, that change is accepted. But when it comes to predictive, you are following a certain plan. If there's a change which is coming in, it has to go through the change control process. So that is one of the values which is also very, very important in an Agile setup. So in a nutshell, we summarize as follows. We have individuals and interactions as compared to processes and tools. Then we have working software as compared to comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration as compared to contract negotiation. Then we also have responding to change over following a plan. So those are the 4 values of an Agile manifesto that you must understand and appreciate. So let us quickly go through and understand each value and what it actually really means. So when it comes to individuals and interactions over processes and tools, so what it means is communication between people is more valuable than a rigid process. So you want people to communicate more than a rigid process. And the tool that prevents conversations is working against you. So in most cases, for example, you might have a 5-minute face-to-face conversation. It might beat a 3-day ticketing queue every time. So individual interaction is also communication becomes very easy. Then working software over comprehensive documentation. What it means is proof is in the product. You have something that works, whether it's prototype or MVP, but at least you have something that you can demonstrate to your users. Then documentation that also helps no one builds or use the product is the worst. So I've seen, especially when it comes to predictive project methodology, you find people, they spend so many months, even weeks, doing a lot of documentation instead of working on a working software. So you want that to just have create just in time and also just enough for that. For example, you have a working prototype reviewed by the customer that tells you more than a 200-page document. This is quite important. If you are able to produce a prototype, you give to the customer, they have a look at it, they give you feedback. Then to try to document the customer requirements in a 50-page document. That's the difference, and that is what is being valued in the Agile Manifesto. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So what it means is, contracts, they define flows, okay? They don't build great products. So ongoing collaboration discovers what the customer actually needs. So the customer is able to describe what exactly do they need, so that you don't misunderstand what is normally called the gulf of evaluation. You don't misunderstand what the customer is actually talking about. So if they're collaborating throughout the project, it makes sense than for someone to focus more on the contracts instead of on the results. So an example of this is weekly demos with the product owner to replace quarterly requirement sign-offs. Sign-offs, you normally find them in the predictive environment. Then you have also responding to change over following a plan. So what does it mean? It means new learning is information, not failure. So plans are tools for coordination when it really changes the plan too also. So what does it mean? It means you're accepting change up to the last minute instead of following a plan. A plan might be followed, but you find that there are certain changes which might come throughout the project that produce more value than to have them go through the change request. So in an agile environment, this kind of changes, you also accept them even up to the last minute before you make your release to production. So an example of this is a mid-sprint pivot based on user feedback. Is success and not a deviation. So normally user feedback, you get it during the sprint review meeting. And that feedback might be more valuable in terms of what you are working on in the project. And therefore what is expected is you accept that change, and then the user becomes happy because what they considered valuable is now available to them.